Hey everyone, I want to go over the Replace Objects tool. The Replace Objects tool allows you to replace one or multiple objects with a different object. In the scene file here, I have this modular style building at the top, and I have the individual modules that actually created this building. What I'm going to do is over in the outliner, I'm just going to select all these planes really quick. Right now, these planes represent these windows. And if I come over here and select my window 2, in this case, this one right here, when I run this tool, what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and replace all of those planes with that model. Now, before I go any deeper with this scene file in particular, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to a more simplistic scene file and go over how exactly this tool works. To open this tool, what you're going to do is come over here to Modify dropdown, and you want to look for Replace Objects. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the dialog box. You'll notice the description reads, replace selected objects with last selected object. So if I want to come over here and replace these 5 cubes on the left, I'm going to select these first, followed by selecting the final object last and hitting apply. Now notice how it actually maintained these rotation transformations. That is because if I go ahead and select these cubes, you'll notice how I have these transforms and rotations. If I go ahead and select some of these and scale them up, and select the cylinder and hit apply, notice how it also takes those scale transforms. Now, however, if I go ahead and select these objects right here and come over here to modify freeze transformations, if I go ahead and select these shapes and run it again, notice how it no longer took into the account the rotation or the scale. Since that information got baked down and it was no longer there, it no longer could do that. I'm going to go ahead and Control Z just to get back to where I was before. Now, another thing to keep in mind is where is the pivot? The pivot is the most important thing to how this works. If I grab this pivot for this cube and I'm going to drag these 2 pivots down here below the grounds. Now, if I go ahead and select these things, grab this cylinder, hit apply, notice how those 2 actually shot down below because it looked at wherever the pivot belongs and that's where it placed it. I'm going to go ahead and Control Z a little bit. Likewise, if you decide to move this piece around, the object that you're choosing to replace with, the transforms and the pivots are equally just as important. If I take this, drag this all the way over here, right now I still have this transform information. If I go over here and run apply, it is still going to work as I expected. However, if I grab this thing and decide to do a modify freeze transformations, if I run this one more time where I select all these objects first, followed by this one last, hit apply, notice how everything shot over. That's because it no longer saw the transformations numbers over here, and so it automatically assumed that these all had to move that far to the side. So whenever you're working with this tool, keep in mind exactly where that pivot information as well as these transforms. Those are vital. Now, so far I have been leaving it at default settings. By default, these are going to create copies. So notice how these copies are completely independent from this object. I can, however, change this to an instance and hit apply. And now notice how all of these are connected as instances. And once you change one, for instance, if I grab this model right here and do an extrusion, it is going to update on everything on this side. And at any point, you can always change that by then changing this back to copy if you no longer want them to be instances. And now they are completely independent from each other. I'm going to go ahead and Control Z. The last one you can actually apply as a reference. This is only going to work if this object right here is a reference. Right now, since it is not, if I try to hit apply right now, I'm going to get an error and it's stating that it requires a reference. So now, knowing how that works, I'm going to go ahead and jump back to this building and let me undo that change. So this building now has these planes again. And when I was ready to update this model with an updated window, all I had to do was select these planes first, select the window last, and hit apply. Now this does work on selecting either geometry or groups. If I select this geo right here, notice how I do have these transform information. That is the only reason why this is working where it is completely down here, not at origin, because I still have this transform information. So if you're going to work like this, in this fashion, where I have all these pieces kind of scattered all over the place, make sure that you maintain this transform information. If I decide I want to change these to references, I can do that just like shown before, where I can select all these groups. In this case, I'm going to select these windows O2, come back over here, select my other window O2 and change to instance. It's going to take just a moment. Now notice how if I change one, it's going to affect all of them. For this sort of scene file to work, what I have done is I have created two sets of groups. I'm going to go ahead and collapse them all first. This first set are these modular assets right down here. If I expand it, these are all my original kind of master pieces. What I can do is if I decide I want to start making updates, let's say I need an extrusion on this piece right here. When I'm ready to make that update, I can come over to this second group and I have all of these named accordingly. So I can grab all these things that say pillar. I'm going to shift select all of these first, which is going to select all of these right here. Now I can just grab this pillar right there like so. I'm going to go ahead and change this to copy instead of instance, and I'll just hit apply. And just like that, now the geometry has all been updated. Again, what you want to remember is the most important thing to maintaining how this works is maintaining your pivots. If I go ahead and select all of these pillars right here, I'm going to hit D. Notice how the pivot is in this bottom corner for every single one of them. If I select this piece right down here, notice how this pivot is exactly the same. If I decide to come over here and if I decide to move these pivots and then run it, this is immediately going to break your system. So maintain those pivots in order for this to work. And that's the Replace Objects tool.